I think Kyle Reese is reminds me of every soldier who's on a 2-week block leave from deployment. And stay with me on this because he wakes up naked in an alley, steals pants from a bum, and then fights a cop and doesn't remember what year it is. Then he steals a car, gets into a shootout, and then bangs and knocks up the CG's daughter slash mom.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Who happens to work at a like
just
shitty
a
little diner, like
a
shitty.
local greasy spoon.
Yeah, a little greasy spoon. That's a good word for it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's funny when you watch these old movies, you realize, God, is that really what they made people wear as a uniform back then? Because you watch. There's a scene in the movie where after, for those who haven't seen it and are somehow not watching it before they come to listen to us
mm,
talk about it, there's a scene in the movie where the Terminator, the unstoppable killing machine, played expertly by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and was probably his first big role, his first starring role, I think, really. Um, it goes through the phone book because it doesn't know which Sarah Connor to kill, so it stocks up on weapons at the local shooting store, and then goes down, just rips it, just goes to the phone book back when people's names and addresses were still in the phone book, and just starts knocking off Sarah Connor's, in alphabetical order. And after the first one gets killed, the people at Sarah Connor's, like the little greasy spoon where she works, one of her fellow employees pulls her into the break room where they're watching the news, and like, oh, it's Sarah Ann Connor, 35, mother of two, shot dead in her home today. And she's like, oh, you're dead, honey.
that's
And
her roommate Ginger, and I love her roommate Ginger. And
was that her roommate?
I think so,
I
yeah.
don't. I thought the person she was working with wasn't her roommate.
I thought it
Because
was.
they have different. I might be wrong. It may just be that the hair is so variable in these movies because they each wear like three different hairstyles.
It was the 1980s.
Yeah, big hair was a thing.
I had this thought about the phone book scene because
Mm-hmm.
that's such a different world than what we live in. And because now people tend to be they're more aware of their personal information getting out, but the difference back then is that information wasn't traded on brokerages, right? Like people didn't sell groups of like your email to marketing campaigns and stuff. So, now granted, you
They hadn't even thought of that yet. That wasn't even a gleam in the eye of friggin' Madison Avenue yet.
yeah, and so that's and but you looking at it now, you're like, oh yeah, we all had our phones and our addresses and things I wouldn't tell anybody. But
Yeah,
now
and
that information is in and it's so hooked to your like identity, it's hooked to your bank account, right? And but you couldn't just like get someone's address and then you'd have to walk into a bank and then present a picture ID to get their money. So it's a very different world.
speaking to the topic of AI, which is very central to the Terminator lore and story, you've got machines, you've got learning, quote unquote, learning machines that can do a lot of that stuff, mining for information on the internet and applying it. At the time we're recording this, Google just came out with its AI overview, which for those who are listening, you probably remember that it was a period where they tried to push AI summaries of like Google results on us because, oh, we've already sunk the capital into this investment of like trying to develop this AI, so we have to push it in everyone's throats until it turns a profit. The only problem is it's consuming bullshit. Like it's consuming shit posts on Reddit, and then it's consuming its own bullshit and basically metastasizing like cancer cells. So you've got stuff where in the Terminator movies, Skynet is supposed to be this like near omnipotent being that is created in the mid '90s to take over the defense networks, and then basically it decides, oh well, humans are a threat to my existence, so it starts a nuclear war, which wipes out like I think the line is 3 billion human lives ended on August 29th, 1997. That's literally the opening line of the second movie. It then organizes a massive funnily enough, a massive anti-guerrilla campaign to try and hunt down and wipe out the human resistance that is left sort of cowering in the rubble after the nuclear war. And um, that's basically what the future segments of the movies involves. Whenever it flashes forward to the future war, whatever they call it, the nightmare future, I think is another term that has been bandied about for this 2029 that the movie depicts when it flashes to the future.
Something I like about the future scenes. Well, I like all the future stuff, but um, I have this in my notes where it says, I call it the human camp of sadness, where Kyle Reese is just like off the clock for the day, and so he's
Mm-hmm.
back from the line, I guess, and everyone's just crying, and there's children watching the TV, but there's a small fire in the TV.
They're just watching
And
flames licking inside the TV.
and I thought that it was cool that their uniforms were cement gray, right? Like because military camo typically is woodland because lots of wars are like fought in the woods. But these this war is fought in the gray rubble of the before time. Now, going back to the present day of 1984,
Mm-hmm.
there's a good bit of acting from Kyle Reese when he's sawing off the shotgun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I liked like he saws out the shotgun and then he tucks it under the trench coat. And so the actor who is portraying Kyle Reese, do you remember his name?
Michael Biehn.
Michael B. Uh, his left arm swings, but his right arm kind of like stays stationary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking, looking at that, I'm like, oh yeah, because of course that's what you would do, right? And if you're trying to be like natural, you would kind of like you would swing both arms, but the right arm is kind of stationary. It's not touching the shotgun, but it's a few inches above the shotgun outside of the clothes, just in case he needs to grab it really fast.
Yeah.
But I thought that was kind of a cool. You don't notice it unless you're looking for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something like, I'm sure like a policeman would pick up on something like
Yeah.
that. Um, and I
This is what
love
my stepdad picks up all the time in movies and in real life, because again, all the years he spent, as a police officer. So yeah, it definitely tracks.
absolutely. And another scene that was a favorite of mine was when Sarah's roommate, I want to say it's Mike or Matt. We'll go
Matt.
with Mike. Matt.
Yeah, the roommate's boyfriend is Matt.
Yes. So when Matt calls, and Sarah Connor picks up and he's like, I want to kiss your neck and then unbutton your blouse and then do sexy things to you. And then she's just like laughing, right? To get the utter ridiculousness of it. And I'm thinking about this from his perspective, and I'm like, oh, he workshopped this in his head all day, right?
Yeah,
Because
because then
when
he uses he says the same when Sarah reveals that he's talking to the wrong person, he kind of freaks out like, "Oh, Sarah, I'm sorry." But then as soon as she hands the phone over to the roommate, who the boyfriend actually wanted to talk to, he just kicks off the script again.
yeah, it
Goes
cuts
right
back.
back to the top of the script.
Exactly. And I was like, yeah, I remember like being a young guy and dating and stuff. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Cause like, you're working all day and you're like, yeah, man, I'm gonna say this really hot line. It's gonna be awesome. And so you're just kind of practicing it and shit. I'm like, I remember being 22. How much do you think Kyle Reese was briefed on the past?
Because
Yeah.
I mean, we see right from the beginning, he knows what Sarah looks like, which is obviously, as we discover through the film, is because he had a picture of her, which he fell in love with, which is like like Rebecca or whatever that movie is, where the guy falls. I think it's a Hitchcock movie where a guy falls in love with a painting, and then he meets the woman like later on or something like that. I watched that movie in film class years ago.
Hmm.
Um, but he's given enough information to give him a fighting chance, considering that he's going up against Terminator. Because
Yeah.
as we sort of touched on a minute ago, the Terminator doesn't know what Sarah is which. It
Yeah.
just knows that the name of the enemy's mother, the leader of the enemy resistance's mother, is Sarah Connor. So it goes back and starts killing all Sarah Connors that it can find in the city of Los Angeles in May of 1984. Whereas Kyle Reese is given the information on what she looks like, where she lives, where she works, probably. And again, he knows that because he's given the mission by John Connor, who would have heard all that stuff from his own mother. So it's kind of like it's the grand it's a time loop basically. It's Sarah Connor gives birth to John Connor, who grows up and leads the human resistance, and then sends his own father, who doesn't know that he's the kid's father yet, but probably has some inkling. If we're honest, he can probably put two and two together. He's not stupid. Um, and sends him back in time and gives him the information he needs to track down his mother and protect her.
Yeah.
Also, with the understanding that, hey, you're sending this kid who's probably like a protege back in time to bang your own mother. So,
Well, family's complicated.
yeah,
Oh man. No, yeah, I would so love a before story of kind of like the moments leading up to uh Kyle Reese's, being sent back in time, his relationship with John Connor.
which we
Uh,
almost got with Terminator Salvation, but not quite.
that probably would have been in the sequel to that if it had happened.
Yeah,
But,
which I imagine it didn't because it wasn't that bad. It was good of a movie.
yeah, but what I kind of want to see with those two is like John Connor knows his father's Kyle Reese,
Mm.
and he's heard the name Kyle Reese 1,000 times, and uh, so he knows he has to make his father fall in love with his mother from a picture and stories and legend, right? It's so if you look at it from Kyle Reese's perspective, like I was thinking about this the other day, where you get this guy, he's maybe what, 25,
Yeah, probably
right?
early to mid 20s, I'd figure.
Yeah, we'll
He's
say
born
20,
after the world ended.
born after the world ended, grew up in the apocalypse war, right? And uh is best friends and his mentor is the leader of the resistance and Captain America in the flesh. And he's never kissed a girl. And all he knows is fighting and combat. When Sarah Connor says, "What are the girls like? Where you come from?" He's like, "They're good fighters." Right? Because that's literally all he knows about them, right? Which is that's a high compliment where he comes from, you know, but because no one's got time for like, uh, podcasting, in the apocalypse war, we'd have to go get real jobs. But, um, no.
It is kind of a star-crossed. It's weird. It's kind of somewhere on the spectrum between star-crossed love and destined love. It kind of oscillates between the two of them.
Yeah.
It's predetermined, but it's also like almost impossible for it to have happened, and yet it did.
Yeah.
Because like I like that you pointed out that John Connor does kind of have to basically set up his father with his mother.
Yeah.
That's a once in a universe type situation.
Yeah. And the scenario where those two hook up and work and it makes
Mhm.
sense is if there's an unstoppable killing machine going after her, right? Of course she's going to fall in love with the warrior from the future who crossed space and time to save her life from the evil machine that wants to kill her. Of course they hook up. That makes the most sense in the fucking world, man.
Yeah.
But like, because in any other version of that, Kyle Reese is going to be kind of a weird guy, right? And but,
Yeah, I
so
mean
John,
it's if we took the titular character, the Terminator, out of the Terminator, and it was just a weird, hey, I gotta send my dad back in time to hook up with my mom. Ho ho. It would be a totally different movie, and it would be probably the most screwball comedy in history. It would be like fucking Back to the Future.
oh, Nick, oh, you just rewrote the Terminator in probably the most original way I've ever heard.
What do you mean?
you take out the killing robot and you just got to make him like hook up with his mom. Like, you know, like they
I mean,
made,
literally, it's back to without the Terminator, it's Back to the Future.
yeah. And, but like, imagine this, like, it's the future. It's the future war. They're not sending a Terminator back, right? Because, and here's a cool theory I heard about the Terminator. Because there's 6 Terminator movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
5 of them are remarkably similar to each other. The fourth one, Terminator Salvation, does do something different, which is I'll always give points to originality. But and I want to get your opinion on this because you're a big nerd like I am. So the first movie, uh, Kyle Reese and Terminator go back, fight, 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 fight. Hope wins, and then Sarah Connor lives to raise John into being the soldier for all time.
Rides off into the sunset, literally, as a storm is rolling in over the Mexican, you know,
I,
that
I
type.
I love the symbolism, and that storyline kind of plays out across 5 of the 6 movies in the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Some version of that happens, but the details are always different, a little bit different. The main beats are always the same, but the specific details are different. Now, a cool theory I heard that kind of explains all of it is that every time the time loop happens, the details change in the timeline, right?
Mhm.
They affect the future. Judgment Day keeps getting pushed back, but uh it always happened. There's like the timeline being elastic always kind of resets back to what it should have been, you
Yeah.
know. And so with each successive loop, reset, change in the timeline, you know, that's how you get to Terminator 6, where John Connor gets shot like 3 years after a T2 Judgment Day. And then Sarah Connor's just like angry for 30 years and hunts Terminators. And then you get this other sort of future war where there is a savior of mankind. There are machines that want to kill us, and there is a person sent back in time to protect that savior of mankind. So the cycle keeps repeating, right?
Mhm.
But through the elasticity of the timeline, the details change. And have you heard that theory before?
I have not actually, although it does make sense because it's as much as I kind of have some beef, a bone to pick with whatever the sixth Terminator movie is that kind of, you know, decided to change the basic formula of what the Terminator is because I'm a traditionalist when it comes to story to my Terminator. I gotta admit they it is an interesting sort of element they introduced to the aesthetic
Yeah.
where it's there's no fate but what we make, but fate also has something to say about what happens to it too. You know,
Yeah.
humans have agency over fate, but fate has agency of its own, and the universe will abide, so to speak.
I like that. There is no fate but what we make, but fate has a say in the proceedings as well.
Yes.
That's re- that's really good, man. I like that a lot. It's
Yeah,
almost like
and
you're a writer.
yeah, almost. I
Yeah,
tried.
sometimes. Um, yeah, where do you land on that? There is no fate but what we make.
You know, I wrote a line down once, and now of course I've probably lost this note somewhere.
Sure.
But um, I wrote a line down once that I wanted to put in a story where a character who is like omniscient and can like see the timeline from above, so to speak, says to a human character, to the human main character, you know, to beings such as yourself who cannot see all ends and all beginnings, what does it matter whether or not there is free will? Because you're living in the river. All you can do is ride. All you can do is ride through the rapids.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not omniscient, whether or not fate is predetermined or not doesn't really matter because we just have to sort of live. We just have to sort of deal the cards we're dealt, you know, or deal with the cards we're dealt. I guess.
See, I
Well,
and I,
I don't mean to say deal with the cards we're dealt as in like, oh well, we should just give up. But no, I mean like the universe happens to us one frame at a time. We can't. We can't
Yeah.
fast forward the movie and see what's going to happen in the next chapter,
Yeah.
and then plan accordingly. We have to go with based on we have to go only on the information that we have in front of and immediately in front of us and what we've already experienced.
I like that. I like that
Yeah.
a lot.